Hello, folks. Welcome back to Fearox Frank Reviews here on the Fearox Frank channel. Lots of things have changed recently. I did a lot of cleaning around here. The gym has been temporarily closed due to repairs, and I had to bring the bike from the gym here. Had a lot of family problems that the guys need to help me out with. And overall, it's just been a pain in the fucking ass ever since the end of Christmas. Well, regular Christmas. I mean, I've been, because I do celebrate Orthodox Christmas with the guys. But either way, well, the holiday season's over. We got a couple other holidays around the corner, and my most hated holiday of all time in February. I'm not gonna say what because I really hate this holiday. Anyways, anyway, today marks a brand new day in the Fearox Frank channel. I've been uploading some music recently as well, and now it's time for me to stop blabbering and get to the next movie we're gonna do on the list. I made a promise I was gonna review this movie, and oh boy, here we go. Today's movie is a special one, for it is the very first PG-13 film ever made. And also, they didn't drop an F-bomb watching this movie. I mean, I looked all over, couldn't find it. Anyway, today's movie is Red Dawn, the classic World War III film. Sorry, that involves teenagers as rebels. We're in for a treat, folks. We're in for a fucking treat. Red Dawn. What can we say about this lovely film? Exactly. Well, it's a war drama film that takes place during World War III in the 1980s. And it's completely different. And it basically became a huge pop cultural film, one of the biggest pop culture films ever made. It was spoofed in GTA Vice City for some fucked up reason that carried over to San Andreas, and technically got a sequel, sort of, but more like a sequel remake in the form of a video game, Freedom Fighters, which is a great game, by the way. You should give it a shot. And also, it did actually have a real remake, but that one was not as well received, from what I was told. Gee, I wonder why. Well, either way, this is by far the very first PG-13 film ever made. After the success of the movie Gremlins, and of course the backlash Gremlins got, well, Steven Spielberg came up with the idea. Hey, let's make a new rating, PG-13, and here it is. That right there means this is the very first film ever made that had the moniker of PG-13. And was it good? Oh, it's a good. Oh, this is a goodie. This is a real good old goodie. Let's stop wasting time and let's get right into the movie, shall we? Well, let's see. The movie basically starts off with a interesting little tidbit information, though, that comes by real quickly. But the information is as such, saying that in the 1980s, the United States has actually become increasingly isolated after a Green Policy Party gains power in West Germany, successfully persuades Western Europe to remove its nuclear weapons. Subsequently, NATO dissolves. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union is devastated by a failed wheat harvest and invades Poland to suppress its food and labor riots. Soviet Union's allies Cuba and Nicaragua build up their military strength, while El Salvador and Honduras fall under Soviet influence. And a communist and of course a communist thing seizes control in Mexico. And yeah, that's basically about it. That's kind of interesting, don't you think? Then again, I'm just reading the plot point off of like fucking Wikipedia real quick. Mainly due to the fact because it's actually something that's actually said very earlier on in the movie because it gets you in the mindset of what's been going on, of what's been happening in the world. All right, the movie basically takes place in in Colorado, and we get to see our main stars, which is our main characters named Jeb, played by Patrick Swayze, and Matt, played by Charlie Sheen. There's a lot of jokes I want to say there, but this is really early in his career. All right, so this is like really beyond fucking early in his career. So no Tiger Blood jokes here, please. Anyway, it turns out that Jeb actually is a football player, former football player, and now works as a gas station attendant with his father. And he and his brother sometimes actually go hunting in the woods within the nearby forest. It's a nice little mountain town region. It's a really it's a nice little place for you to kick back, relax, and a nice little American town. That is until like we that is until we have the Cubans and the Russians actually parachuting in. Yeah, right in the middle of a history exam too. They actually start shooting up the school with killing a teacher and killing God knows how many fucking students there were. Wow. Okay. You know what? Here's the thing. This is literally the world's first PG-13 film. But just gunning down students like right there in the beginning of the movie, that's R-rated material right there. You know what? This movie was really laying out the groundwork, like legit, just laying it out. First time shit like this has happened. Eventually, Jeb actually gets his brother Matt and a bunch of other boys and several other boys, and they actually make their way to the mountains. They step off at a guy at one of the boys' father's place. There's actually a surplus store outside of town. The kid's name is Robert. The kid's name is Robert. Yes, Robert, and he actually has never hunted before, but he actually always wanted to try hunting. Well, now he's gonna get a chance to. There's also Daryl, Abs. I'm going to call this kid Abs because I can't really pronounce this kid's name at all. It's a ridiculous name. And there's also Daniel. They make their way up to the mountains. So after dodging a Soviet blockade, thanks to the American soldiers, they actually got through the blockade. Yes. Anyway, we actually see one of our main villainous characters, a Cuban soldier by the name of General Bella. And yes, that's his actual name, Bella. You know what? Let me look up real quick what his name is. Because sometimes, like, when they usually say the names, it's half the times it's hit or miss. So just give me a second here. His name is, yeah, it's, Bella. Colonel, Colonel Ernesto Bella, part of the Cuban Revolutionary Army. Huh. It's actually played by Ron O'Neal, amongst all things. Who would have figured? So, yeah. Basically, he takes control of it, takes control of the town with a Nicaraguan advisor and also a Soviet soldier advisor. Yeah, great. The town has now come under siege. Is now under siege by the Soviets under Soviet rule, thus making it a red town. Get it? Red Dawn. The boys actually hide up in the mountains, actually just camping and hunting. While Daryl suggests they should actually go back into town and surrender, while Jed says they shouldn't. Though they get into a bit of a fight, but eventually, Danny starts freaking out. But Robert, AJ, and Matt all side with Jeb. Eventually, Daryl sides with him too, and Danny calms down and actually sides with him as well. So the boys basically do a bunch of hunting out there, and this all takes place in September. That's right. There's segments in this movie that takes place during several months. This all happened in September, and they basically all happened in September. They're actually doing okay, but when October rolls around, not too good. They have to go back into town. By the time October happens, the boys actually only Mike, Jet, no, wait, sorry, Matt, Jeb, and Robert actually make their way back into town. And yes, the Soviets have basically fully taken over it though. And it turns out they're actually wanted by the KGB. Why? Because technically they're trying to get rid of it. Because apparently the Soviets are trying to get rid of everybody who's actually perceived as a bit of a threat. So Robert actually finds out that his father was actually killed by the Soviets, and Yeah, and Matt and Jeb's father has been captured by the Soviets, and he later gets executed. That happens a little bit later, though, but still. However, as the boys were making their way around town, they actually come across a couple of people they can actually hang out with while they're on the outskirts of town, where thus they meet two other people, two girls, Tony and Erica, both played by Jennifer Grey and Leah Thompson. And this actually be the first film that Jennifer Grey and Patrick Swayze would work together in. Next one being Dirty Dancing, of course. Hmm. Yeah, interesting. So they make their way up to the mountains, and basically they just try to have the girls adapt to the whole hunting thing. But things get a little bit worse for wear because apparently a Soviet scouting troop actually was taking some photos, and of course, they came across the kids, and they decided to capture the kids, but the kids fought back. And Robert, being pissed off at what happened, what the Soviets did to his father, he guns them down. And of course, the others kill the Erica kills one, and Jeb kills the other, kills the remaining one. And so they take their weapons and their supplies and dump the bodies back outside of town. So, so yeah. So they come to the conclusion they're going to fight back. They're going to be the. They said that they're actually rebels. When the Soviets actually say that these kids are rebels, well, now they are going to be the rebels. This is the birth of the rebel group known as the guerrilla group, the Wolverines. No X-Men jokes, please. Please do not make any X-Men jokes, all right? This is before Wolverine was super fucking famous, okay? Just no, okay? I had enough Deadpool references for the last several months. So, either way, as October goes around and going into November, the Wolverines actually do nothing more but surprise attacks and just guerrilla warfare, killing off the Soviets as much as they can, and also trying to free as much hostages as they can. There's also like a bit of a thing going on when the Soviets actually when the Wolverines kill some people, the Soviets actually kill some more innocent people, though. But in the end, it comes back to bite them in the ass. So, while they kill even more soldiers and actually free the rest of the people. So, yeah, that was kind of a stupid thing to do. I was supposed to mention too that Daryl's father happens to be the mayor. Oh, gee, that's not going to be a good thing, now is it? No, it's not. It's actually going to be. It's going to come back to bite them in the ass. And supposedly, I did find this out originally, but there were some deleted scenes and some stuff that actually was removed from the movie to actually make the movie run faster. Because this movie is, yeah, it's about 2 hours long, but supposedly the original cut version was like almost 3 hours long, supposedly, and it was actually close to R-rated material, but they had to tone it down a lot. So yeah, they continue on the guerrilla warfare tactics. They actually meet Powers Booth, amongst all things. His name is Andy. He's actually an Air Force pilot, and he tells them the business what's been happening out there. So apparently, the Soviets have been trying to take over the entire world, and of course, Europe. Most of Europe is basically staying out of it, though. But apparently, Africa's been fighting back. Several countries in Africa are fighting back. Japan and China are actually fighting back. In fact, he actually makes a quote saying, "Yeah, they have 600 screaming Chinamen. No, what was it? Not screaming Chinamen. 600 strong screaming men, people in China." One of the kids says, "Wait a minute, isn't it over 1 billion people in China? And aren't they actually associated with the Soviets? Because even though China's a communist country, not anymore, they're not." Whoa, that's pretty fucking harsh. Hmm. So yeah, apparently the Soviets actually cut their connection off with China, and now most of the Asian countries are actually fighting the Soviets now, including Vietnam, which is incredibly insane. Wow. So anyway, Andy actually decides to join them, and they actually continue on the guerrilla tactics and taking out as many. This all happens in November too. As December rolls around, things they continue on They continue on all the way through December as well, and they actually tell them more and more up to December, where of course the Soviets are demanding to know the location of the Wolverines. Nobody's talking because the Wolverines are actually the ones that are actually helping people. That's not surprising in my opinion at all. No, sir, Reed, that is just totally surprising, in my opinion. This is a lamp, by the way. I mean, if you're wondering what the hell this thing is, yeah, it's a lamp. I got an old lamp recently. Couldn't find a table to put it on, so I just stuck it on the shelf here. Yeah, along with the Retro Fighters controller from the Nintendo 64. Yeah, I gotta get Rex to do a Nintendo 64 game sooner or later. I just have to turn this fucking camera around. Oh well. So basically, it turns out that Andy found out that the special forces are actually going to come by in springtime and actually help liberate the entire town. That's good to know, but except spring is a long ways away, and he finds this out in December. In January, in January the Wolverines are continuing to operate by, of course, just observing the actual main war. Unfortunately, it turns out there's something incredibly wrong. And yeah, it turns out the Soviets actually found out where the Wolverines are and tried to attack them. Within the ensuing attack, AJ and Andy are both mortally wounded. AJ unfortunately is killed on the spot, while Andy actually gets a smoke signal out for the American tanks to shoot at the Soviet tanks where he's at. So the Wolverines evacuate, and the Americans take out the Soviet tanks. So here's the main rub. What's been actually happening so far? All right, now we have lost two. We have lost two Wolverines. But what was the whole war effort happening? What was actually happening? Where's the safe zones exactly? Well, apparently the East and the West Coast are both actually safe zones, while the entire Midwest section of the United States, basically the entire Rocky Mountain section, yeah, it's all Soviet territory, mainly because of the fact that they actually had the Soviet soldiers actually who snuck in from Mexico, and actually started doing coordinated attacks, and the Soviets actually from Russia, actually stuck in via Alaska. And this is kind of weird, but there's also been a rumor going around saying that I'm sure you've heard about the made for television film World War III, right? Yeah, it was a major television event back in the 80s. Now, apparently, the whole thing takes place in Alaska, but the movie ended off on a stalemate. So I haven't seen it particularly. I've actually saw maybe a couple of reviews on the whole thing, but something I watch later on. But apparently, that movie takes place in this film's universe. If so, that explains a lot. But it's just a rumor I've heard. Anyway, the Spetsnaz actually come up into the town and actually said they're going to take over hunting the Wolverines. After a few days later, they actually find out where the Wolverines are, but the Wolverines discover that the Spetsnaz are on their way. And so what they do? Well, they do a blitz, they do a surprise attack and gun down all the soldiers except for one particular soldier. But he had a device on him, which is very confusing. And Daryl was actually looking very suspiciously guilty about something. I don't know what the hell that's all about. Uh, While Matt was able to actually get the device working, it's discovering that it's actually pointing where Daryl is. It's actually pointing at Daryl. But the Soviet soldier actually decided not to talk because he didn't want to because he was being a prisoner of war. Yeah, the whole Geneva Convention thing. The thing is, Cubans, basically the entire Soviet Union has not been playing by the Geneva rules. So why the fuck should they be playing by the rules? So here's what's actually been happening. It turns out Daryl went stuck in the town a few days ago, and okay, his father turned him into the Soviets, and the Spetsnaz actually made him swallow a tracking device. So yeah, way to go, asshole! You sold your own son out to the fucking Soviets. Fuck you. Though from what I've heard, his father actually did wind up getting executed regardless after what happens next. So Jeb actually won. So they actually execute both of them. However, Jeb actually guns down the Soviet soldier. While he doesn't want to actually kill Daryl, but Robert kills him instead out of anger. So basically, this entire part in February is just them actually finding off the Spetsnaz, which of course they actually get a food truck delivery that was actually left behind by the Spetsnaz, but it turns out it was actually a trap later on, where of course, where of course, where Tony actually gets mortally wounded, and Robert actually does his best to take out a chopper or an RPG, but he fails in the process, and he gets gunned down by the Soviets. Jeb is actually gives a dying Tony a live grenade because she actually told him to kill her, but he couldn't have the heart to do it. So what does he do? He gives her a grenade instead. He pulls the pin, leaves it with her, and when the Soviet soldier comes by to pick her up, boom! So yeah, so the Spetsnaz commander is actually a little bit disappointed at what's been happening so far, and now there's only like 4 Wolverines left. There's actually only 4 members left in the group. And there's only Erica, Danny, Matt, and Jeb. Basically, Jeb actually writes down an entire memorial and the names of all the people who were associated with the Wolverines on this rock. So, and Matt actually tells Erica and Daniel they need to leave because the fight's getting out of hand. They're gonna go into town. Him and Jeb are gonna go into town and fuck up some Soviets and just buy them some time. Yeah. So eventually, Erica and Daniel go their separate ways, while Jeb and Matt go back into town and they go full Rambo first blood on the Soviet asses, blowing shit up, gunning down the Soviet soldiers. And before the battle actually starts, we see Ernesto Bella actually starting to regret everything he's been doing so far. We start to see his progression of regret over as the film goes on, and we start to see that he's actually fully regretted this whole thing, and he was going to turn in his resignation in the morning. That's when the fight starts. Matt and Jeb are just raising hell. Huh. They're taking names and raising complete hell, killing every Soviet soldier they get their hands on. They even kill a huge amount of Spetsnaz soldiers as well. In fact, two of the main commanding officers are actually killed off. The Soviet commander is killed off, as well as the Nicaraguan commander. And actually, the Nicaraguan commander goes out like a bitch because he tries sneaking up on Mike, who actually has an on Matt, who has an RPG. The RPG actually wants him he shoots and kills the main Soviet commander, and the fucking Nicaraguan commander was right behind him when he shot the RPG like an idiot. Wow, way to go, dumbass! Hmm. So the Spetsnaz commander actually Mike and Jeb are actually on a train, actually moving around town. However, the Spetsnaz commander actually shoots and mortally wounds Matt. So we now have a final shootout between Jeb and the Spetsnaz commander, and he says, "You lose." They actually shoot each other, but Jeb actually shoots and kills him. Unfortunately, he's mortally wounded in the process. But but with his remaining strength, he picks up Matt and carries him straight to the park where they used to play as when they were kids. So now, Bella actually does catch up to them though, and he points his AK-47 at them. But seeing that they're weak in condition and seeing that they were still just kids, he's just like this. He lets them go. He lets them go, and he drops his AK-47 right there on the spot. Hmm. This is pure regret that he has. That they made a bunch of kids rebels that just did all this to the bunch of soldiers. Yep, nothing but regret, my man. Nothing but regret. Now, we don't actually get to see what happens, but let's see what good old Wikipedia has to say what actually happens. Hmm. Oh, it says here they just bled to death, which is a pretty sad idea. Which is pretty sad that these two characters actually die like that. But I wonder who gets it worse: the fact that these boys actually say they did their best, or the fact that Colonel Bella actually felt like shit afterwards. So, seeing that he actually made these two boys into that his countrymen had made these two boys into into complete killers. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's actually feeling like shit right now. Eventually, Erica and Daniel actually do make it to the safe zone, and the movie ends supposedly years later with an epilogue that actually says that actually goes right back to the Rock where Jeb actually wrote the eulogy, and the Rock reads as this. With a, Here's what the plaque reads. It reads, "In the early days of World War III, guerrillas, mostly children, placed their names of the lost, placed the names of their lost upon this rock. They fought here alone. They gave their lives that this nation will not perish from the earth." That's pretty powerful stuff, my friend, ladies and gentlemen. That is pretty powerful stuff. And it's Erica who actually gives the eulogy. And supposedly, there's actually another deleted segment in the movie, which I think should have stayed in the movie. That her and Daniel actually came back, and they both were married. And it's not too sure if it was supposed to be them who were going to be married to each other, or they had spouses. But here's the thing: they actually show up there, and they bring their children, and their children are named after their fallen comrades. Yeah, that would have been a much more powerful ending if they actually kept that in the movie. But the movie ends with a credit crawl and, of course, showing all the cast members. And that, my friends, was Red Dawn. How was it? Is it a good movie? Is it a great movie? Is it a piece of crap? It's a good movie. Yes, this is surprisingly a very good. This is a good movie, and you have to give it a watch. Like I said, it's the first historical PG-13 film ever made, and it definitely set the boundaries of what could be made in a PG-13 film. Unlike nowadays, where it comes down to a regular PG film, which is all like family friendly shit. That's ridiculous. Ugh. I miss old school horror PG films. The old school horror films that were actually on par with the Hammer horror films. Yeah, we need to make films like that nowadays. It's really sad to see movies how far movie qualities have decreased over the years. But here's the question: do I highly recommend the movie Red Dawn? The answer is yes, I do, ladies and gentlemen. It is by far the very first PG-13 film ever made, and it's also an instant classic. Thank you very much. Anyway, thank you very much for enjoying. I hope you all enjoyed the video and enjoyed my rants of being an asshole like I usually am. But it's just me giving my personal opinions on the film and what I think in the end. Do I think it's a great movie? Do I think it's a piece of crap? No, it's a really good movie. It's a historical film, being the first PG-13 film ever made, and I like it. It has a special place in my heart. Huh. You know, I can't help feeling that I've actually haven't done something in a while. You know what? There's actually a type of movie thing I haven't done in a while. And seeing as if this is a brand new year, and it's been a long while since I actually did this, I think it's time for me to go back to doing the film versus. Oh yeah, film versus. But what film should be on the list? Last time around it was kind of a weird one. So you know what? I'm gonna do one from a movie franchise that are supposed to be two remakes. What would that be? Godzilla time, people. That's right. Tune in next time. It's film versus. This time it's Godzilla minus one versus Shin Godzilla. Which one was the better film? Which one's the which one's better? You have to find out next time. Until then, Fearox Frank